Welcome to Rediscovering the Beatles with Mark Morris. I'm Mark. Today we're going to do the second part of my quiz series. This is going to be intermediate. There's another one I did that was easy, and then in the future I'm going to do one that's difficult. After that, that will be the end of this quiz series. I decided I want to focus more on the personal history and my records, but I've been off sick for a few days and this is keeping me entertained, so let's go ahead and start the quiz. Question number 1. What was the name of the session drummer that George Martin hired to play drums instead of Ringo on Love Me Do? I'll give you 5 seconds. Did you get it? The session drummer's name was Andy White. George Martin didn't have the confidence in Ringo at first, so he hired Andy White to play drums on Love Me Do. Ringo was regulated to play the tambourine. He was not very happy about it, neither were any of the other Beatles, and Ringo gave George Martin a hard time about that for years. You can still hear Ringo play the drums on Love Me Do on the Past Masters album. Question number 2. In relation to the Beatles, who was Jimmy Nicol? 5 seconds. Jimmy Nicol was kind of a sad character in the Beatles' history. When Ringo came down with tonsillitis in 1964, Jimmy filled in for Ringo for 8 dates on their world tour. Then afterwards, he was kind of shipped off. I'll put a picture of him, I believe, where after he's been relieved of his duties, he's sitting in an airport all by himself. It's kind of a sad picture. Jimmy went on to say it was the worst thing that ever happened to him. Question number 3. Who was the song Dear Prudence about? 5 seconds on the clock. Of course, the answer is Prudence Farrow. That was the sister of Mia Farrow when they went to their trip to India to study from the Maharishi. I have a little more information here. During the stay, Prudence had locked herself away in her hut, where she was studying transcendental meditation with the Beatles, Donovan, Mike Love, and others. She was meditating far longer than anybody else, and the others were beginning to worry about her state of mind. So then John Lennon, he tells this story to Playboy magazine. Mia Farrow's sister, who seemed to go slightly balmy, meditating too long, wouldn't come out of the little hut we were living in. They selected me and George to try and bring her out because she would trust us. She went completely mental. If she'd been in the West, they would have put her away. We got her out of the house. She'd been locked in for 3 weeks and wouldn't come out, trying to reach God quicker than anybody else. Question number 4. How many Beatles played on the single The Ballad of John and Yoko, and who were they? There were only 2 Beatles who played on The Ballad of John and Yoko, and they were John Lennon and Paul McCartney. John played lead guitars, acoustic guitar, percussion, and did the lead vocal, while Paul played bass guitar, drums, piano, maracas, and harmony vocals. George Harrison was on vacation, and Ringo was off working on the movie The Magic Christian. This gives me a chance to show off a couple singles. I do have The Ballad of John and Yoko on 2 singles. This is my Japanese version, and then I have a French version too. If you're interested in singles, I did a video recently just going over the singles I have. It's not a huge collection, so it's a short video. But let's go on with the quiz. I know that's what you're here for. Which solo Beatle album, this is question number 5, which solo Beatles album features a Beatle as an alien from the classic 1951 film, The Day the Earth Stood Still? If you saw my video on Ringo Meets Gort, you will know that it's Ringo Starr that is on the cover of Goodnight Vienna. This is a scene from The Day the Earth Stood Still. I believe they only imposed Ringo's head on Michael Rainey's body, but that is the album. Let's go to number 6. What was John Lennon's only number 1 hit in the U.S. during his lifetime? Believe it or not, John Lennon only had one number 1 hit in the United States during his lifetime, and that was his collaboration with Elton John for Whatever Gets You Through the Night. A lot of people believe that Imagine went to number 1, but it only made it to number 3. And then Starting Over became a number 1 hit, but that wasn't until after his assassination. Number 7. In which year did Paul McCartney meet John Lennon? You get an extra point if you get the exact date. 5 seconds. July 16th, 1957 was the date and year that John met Paul. On July 6, 1957, 16-year-old John Lennon met 15-year-old Paul McCartney. It was at St. Peter's Woolton's Parish Church in Liverpool, and John was playing with the Quarrymen at the church garden party. So, number 8. Which song did Paul play for John during their first meeting? Did you get it? The 15-year-old Paul McCartney impressed Lennon with his ability on the guitar and his version of Eddie Cochran's 20 Flight Rock. So that brings us to number 9. Number 9. There are 10 of these questions, by the way. What was the working title of the White Album? The working title of the White Album. If you saw my video on the Beatles for sale about John Lennon's copy of the White Album going up for auction, you would know that the working title was In a Doll's House. It was named after the Isbin play from the 19th century. The working title was A Doll's House, changed after UK progressive rock band Family released the similarly titled Music in a Doll's House earlier that year. So the album simply became the Beatles, what we've come to call the White Album. I do have a White Album to show you. I have an older version. I have actually quite a few versions of the White Album, but this is a brand new one, the Giles Martin mix. I haven't decided. I think I'm going to keep it wrapped like this and either give it to my daughter Luxie or just keep it wrapped in my collection so when I ultimately pass on, she will get it that way. But she'll get it one way or the other. So Now we're at number 10. This is the final question. The tension is mounting. I hope you've been keeping score. What unlikely song from the White Album became a number one hit in Sweden? An unlikely song from the White Album that became a number one hit in Sweden. 5 seconds. This was a tough one, and I have to admit this was one I didn't know until I was doing some research on the web today. So the unlikely song from the White Album that made it to number one in Sweden was Ringo's Don't Pass Me By. Ringo had been working on Don't Pass Me By for 5 years before he was cajoled into completing it for the White Album. It peaked at number one in Denmark in April 1969. And even though that was an unlikely number one hit, I must say I like that song. I really do. I think it's funny. So I enjoy that song. I probably wouldn't have included if I did the exercise where you turn the 2 albums into 1 album for the White Album. That would probably be one that goes. But I do enjoy that song. I would never skip it. And that's my feeling on Don't Pass Me By. So that's it for our quiz today. Thank you so much for participating. I hope you had fun. Even if you didn't do well, I hope you learned some stuff. I have one more of these to do, and then I'm going to call this quiz series quits because I get so frustrated with quizzes when I see them online. They're either incredibly easy and they bore me, or they're so hard that I feel stupid. So I don't want to put anybody else in that situation. So thanks again, and I will talk to you all very soon.